Hello, everybody. I'm Norton Owen. I'm Director of Preservation here, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this Pillow Talk on Densely Intelligences. I'm just standing here by the side of our moderator because I'm going to now pass the microphone over to him, but I want to just briefly introduce Sydney Skybetter. Sydney has been, pause for applause. Sydney has been a performer at the Pillow, a choreographer. He has been a scholar in residence. He is permanently affiliated with Brown University, and we're really happy to be working with him on various of our technological initiatives. And so I give to you Sydney Skybetter.
Thank you so much. Y'all, indeed, my name is Sydney Skybetter. It is a forever pleasure and honor to be here at the Pillow on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. I'm so grateful to be here with these titans of dance nerdery. These are some of the most influential and innovative thinkers and actors, makers and practitioners in dance and technology practice today. I am thrilled. Did somebody clap? Yeah, we should clap. Yes, please clap. I'm going to ask that our panelists introduce themselves in alphabetical order. And then we can get into a conversation, well, you know, instead of like by order of my favorites, which obviously they're all my favorite. They will introduce themselves in a 5-minute bit of repartee. They'll show a little bit of their work, put their work into both dancerly and technological context, and then we will chat. With that said, Andrew Schneider, I believe the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sydney Skybetter.
You're welcome, Andrew Schneider.
Appreciate that. If the floor is mine, I'm going to take 1 minute of my introduction, and I want us to all breathe together. We're just going to take 3 breaths together. I'm not going to lead it. You don't have to close your eyes. You can do whatever you want. We're just going to breathe. Here we go. All right. Thank you. That made me feel better. I don't know about you. My name is Andrew Schneider. I make theater, I make dance, I make installation work, anything that has people in a room together, witnessing each other or witnessing someone else do something. That's what I tend to focus on. So a lot of people being in a room, breathing together, is what I really like. It's just been so incredible to be here with Grisha and Katie, and to share our minds with each other and our hearts with each other. Thanks. I just want to say thank you for doing that this week. Should I just go straight to the videos? Maybe I'll go straight to the videos, just to give you a sense of the sort of what I make. The first piece is a theater show that I made called After. These are very, very short clips. And in the first piece, it's about a woman dying on the side of a mountain and the hallucinations that her mind goes through as her body goes through physical death. The second, they're back to back, so I'm just going to introduce them all right now. The second piece is a rehearsal video from my phone of a piece I choreographed for the Sascha Waltz and Guest Dance Company in Berlin in 2019 with their incredible ensemble. And then the last piece is an installation that I just made for 8 people at a time, in which it's a light-based installation with 4,000 individual LEDs, and each of these LEDs, as you walk up to it, it's a star, and it tells you a story to you, where you are. So yeah, I think, Rachel, we can roll that.
I wish that you would just listen instead of waiting for your turn to talk.
Doctor says you have 24 hours to live. And that's the good news? Why did I come in here again?
Birds are dinosaurs.
Oh, I remember.
It's okay. It's fine. Hey, breathe. Just breathe. Do you know how long
Careful.
you have the right?
And it was when she just gave birth to her first son, she looked at him and said out loud, "You are not mine anymore." Which maybe sounds kind of shocking, but what she meant was that I so loudly that
That's it for me. It's just one clarification I forgot to make. That the first piece that you saw, there are no edits in that footage. So all the blackouts that you saw and all the jump cuts, those are happening in real time, which is a big part of what I do. Yeah.
Katie Kwan, the floor is yours.
Very cool, Sydney Skybetter. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Really great to be with you. Wanted to express quite a bit of gratitude along the lines of what Andrew shared to not only be in space with Andrew and Grisha, but also alongside my dear friend and multi-hyphenate collaborator whose work I've admired for quite some time, Sydney Skybetter. And then to be here at the Pillow. This is my first time here. I have to remark that it's a magical place. The energy is palpable. It's so inspiring, and I feel really grateful to have spent this week here, especially alongside two great collaborators, Lisa Einstein and Ren Elhai, who are also here. I can talk a little bit about my work. I self-identify as a We've been talking a lot this week about words that we choose to use to describe the things we do. So I'm a dancer, a choreographer, a researcher, and an engineer. I just finished my PhD in robotics at Stanford, and before I got there, I was a professional dancer in New York, performing on many different kinds of stages. I primarily use robots in performances and installations, robots that have already been constructed, so they exist in some form or another, and I co-opt them for the art making of my choosing. I spent my PhD working primarily with code, so programming things to make robots do things. A little bit of the work that I'm going to share today, it involves two projects from my thesis. One of them is called Music Mode, where I mapped the joint velocities of a robot's movement to different sound samples so that the robot makes music while it moves. What that means is you have a robot that's wiggling around in place, you associate the elbow with some beautiful trumpet sound, and maybe you've got the gripper goes along with a bell, and the head has these strings on top of it, and then every time these things move, you hear that sound. And so all the music that's here emerges as a result of the movement that the robots perform. And then they all had these little speakers on them, and they were driving around, and so they were these self-contained dancing instruments. Then the robots need to move. You have to make them move. And so I created this flocking algorithm where it's based on a very canonical algorithm from the 1980s. Craig, now I'm forgetting his last name, but it's this canonical flocking algorithm that was primarily done in graphics, which I've made a version of that here and then added a bunch of choreographic things on top of it. So getting robots to move in linear patterns, adding humans that are detected in the space to part of this flock, and then adding some gesture responsiveness. So you could stand in a group of 8 robots, put your hands in the air, and they'd all start pirouetting in place. So these were 2 projects from my thesis. And then I'm here in this residency at The Pillow because I'm premiering a brand new work on December 16th. It's called Breathless, Katie and the Robot, where I'm going to dance with a robot for 8 hours at National Sawdust in Brooklyn. You're all invited. And the crux, the sort of energetic vector behind that piece is a modern retelling of an American workday and asking questions about what does it mean to work, to labor, what is a day in my life, a little bit that we were talking about last night, and how can we create poetry out of these forms of manual labor. So I'll share this piece. It's roughly called Project Starling. It has only ever been seen in the walls of this fancy building at Google, but we were working very hard to make sure that it goes beyond that. So I'll show you just 1 minute of what it looks like.
Okay, hi. Hi, everybody. My name is Grisha Coleman, and I want to third what Andrew and Katie and Sydney have said, fourth it. And I'd also like to bring in, and I know everybody is also thinking this, Jason and Tiffany and Danielle and Alicia and Pam, obviously, but I mean, Jacob's Pillow really is trying to come up to this. That's my sense of it. And all the people we've met this week, and Stephen, I see you. So I think that just like, it's very, to step out on a limb, that's what it feels a little bit like, because you all, many of you just came from Complexions, awesome, but different, concert stage different. And I feel like I can talk a little bit about it because I have been here multiple times across my life. I came as a student, and then I came back with a company called the Urban Bushwomen, and we worked here a lot, and we premiered a show there. And then I came back again with a company called Rennie Harris Pure Movement, and we did concert dance, So I think that this kind of like an accumulation of knowledge and information and how you bring technology in is something that we all are working with, and it's new, but it's not so new in a kind of way. It's what we use all the time. We use it all the time. You use it all the time. And so we're just kind of making explicit this. I grew up in New York, and I sort of took a pivot by working with a lot of, I'm not a mechanical engineer myself, but I work a lot with science, computer scientists, engineers, and I have to teach a lot of technology. And I work in movement and technology. And so the project that I'm bringing to the Pillow is a new work called The Movement Undercommons: Technology as Resistance Future Archive. So that it has a bunch of parts to it. One part of it is kind of decidedly researchy, meaning I go out into the field with motion capture technology, which you would recognize from seeing any Hollywood CGI movie, Planet of the Apes, Lord of the Rings. I have to say that so you don't think it's so far away from you. It's not so far away from you. It's just that I'm not making those movies with the mocap technology. I'm interested in what we were calling vernacular movement, and creating a vernacular movement lexicon, a repository of, I almost want to say everyday movement, but that means something different in a kind of postmodern dance world. So really what I mean is a kind of ethnography. Farmers and bakers and crossing guards and people who clean the office and etc. And creating a kind of like movement haiku out of that with the data that I capture from the interaction that I have with people. So because it's kind of a new project, I built some prototypes, and I want to share one with you today, because there's the repository which is the thing that you don't see because of issues of data ethics and all sorts of things that we all are also navigating right now in terms of AI and data. And I'm sorry, Brian, I just got to shout you out. Digital materiality. My colleague has written an amazing book about that. Sorry, but I think that the public-facing part of it is are building these movement portraits, and it's like, as I've said last night a lot, it's like this idea of wrangling with data. It's almost like doing a close reading of the data. Like, what does movement data look like? It's really complex, and even with only 16 sensor markers, you get a ton of data with it. And so you say, how would I express this person, what you would call the patterns of movement of this person? And I will tell you right now, every single person in here has their own unique fingerprint, their own movement fingerprint. And you don't have to be dancing like that in order to have it, because we have bodies. And so we have, nurture and nature, and we have the environment, and you grow up and you become yourself. So I find that interesting, and the fact that you can see that in data is also interesting. So maybe I'll show the first slide, which is, I thought what would be interesting was because everybody asks, well, how are you going to do that? Because, make a portrait of a person, like I'm not doing it with paint, I'm not Rembrandt, but I'm thinking about portraiture. I'm thinking about the person. But this is what it comes out, this is what it gives me. This is a small slice of what it gives me. Just numbers and numbers and numbers and numbers. So what does it mean to read that if you're just a human being? And then, next slide. So we did a lot of studies, like movement studies. And this next piece, I'm just showing you only 20 seconds of it because, go ahead, yeah. Oh, yes, okay. We just call this stick blob because I want you to see how raw it can be. The question here was human movement, how nuanced, how complex, and that's a stick figure, right? But if we transferred that movement data onto another object that wasn't figurative, what would we find? would we be able to recognize something of the pattern in the blob? So I just want to show that to you, not because I think it's art, but just because it's interesting to see kind of the progression of how you might get to a place where you understand the movement enough that you could be expressive with it, just like any instrument, just like any musical instrument in a kind of way. That's what I'm thinking about a lot. Like, you'd have to practice a long time until you got good at it. And then the next thing I want to show you super quickly is that is the work we were doing when we were in the summer studio. So all of us have had chunks of time in the summer studio, and a lot of that had to do with projecting. Yeah, you can go to 103, I guess. Oh, there it is. Projecting the portraits that we're making onto different kind of material surfaces to see how it behaves. Kind of very experimental in a science way, I'd say. And so then you can't tell, but we're looking at luminosity, and we're looking at porosity, and we're looking at what goes through and how it behaves with the material. Okay, that's great. And then the last thing I want to show you was an actual prototype of a portrait that we made. So go ahead, and this is portrait of the crossing guard outside my son's school in Cambridge.
I seen you. Good morning, guys. Hi, Billy. Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Yes. Yes. Tell me how I made falling and rising all these years. I'm gonna tell you something, girls. This job, I love doing this, okay? Let me tell you that right now. I started doing this in 2005. The story was, I had another job before this with the city. I was a custodian in one of the schools, one of the preschools. It's funny, they called me and said, oh, you can become a traffic cop. And actually, let me tell you something. I talk to all the kids and the parents. I talk to everybody because I'm a talkative person. And, I ran into some of the kids. I still run into some of the kids. They said to me, I'm in college or I'm out of college. I'll be like, what? I said to them, oh, you always trying to tell me it's time for me to retire? They be laughing. I'm like, I've already seen them grow up then and still seeing these kids, and I don't forget a face. And some parents are like, how did you remember that? Because I said, I remember you. And the parents are like, then they realize, they're like, yeah, they tell me, oh, you were all the way in North Cambridge. I worked in, because I work in different areas. My dad's originally from Mississippi. His dad moved to Chicago. And my granddad told me the whole story. How my granddad told me, back in the day that he was getting ripped off picking cotton. He said to his wife that, oh, I'm going to go to Chicago and find a job. And I'll come back for you guys. So,
what type of music were you listening to?
Gospel. That's all I listen to. Makes my day.
I feel like shouting. I feel like shouting. I feel like shouting. I feel like shouting. Feel like shouting. I feel like shouting. Just got to take off.
Thank you, Grisha. So as you can tell, Andrew, Katie, and Grisha all represent wildly different perspectives on contemporary choreographic practice. And I just want to briefly put this into a kind of dance historical perspective. To roll back the clock a little bit, like the 16th, 17th century, a bunch of Italian engineers sort of reinvent the proscenium stage, and a bunch of people think it's going to ruin the then nascent art of ballet. And then it becomes the state of the art. And proscenium stages are now what is normatively understood to be the sort of bastion and home of the Western dance tradition. There are similar moments of technological innovation ranging from fireproofing to the point shoe, ticketing. These are all technologies that have all been designed, developed, iterated upon over decades and centuries. I want to, again, posit that these are technologies. And to my mind, the kinds of technologies that Andrew, Katie, and Grisha are working on, while nascent, still to me represent dance future. At least that's the archipelago that I want to put them in, to postulate in. And to wit, I want to pose another question for the three of you. What are the specific or discrete technologies that y'all are working with, and how is it that you work with them? How do they interface with your body, and why? Really, Andrew, Katie, or Grisha, any of you, really.
The robots you saw in these videos, I will use them as an example because they're sort of a stand-in for most of the technologies that I've used in the past. These robots, we would call them 7DOF, so 7 degree of freedom. That means they have 7 joints. So the same way you have a shoulder or an elbow or a wrist, we would call that a joint. They're on wheels. They have a LiDAR, so they have a variety of different kinds of sensors that they use to detect where they are in the space. They're also equipped with all these different kinds of cameras inside of the head. And then, of course, you have an expensive computer on all of those robots, and they're connected to the internet. So robots in general, I would say, are comprised of a sensing, a computation, and an actuation component. And I've used probably 12 or 13 different kinds of robots in my work. Everything from a small Roomba on the floor to these big industrial robots that they use to manufacture cars. Then I use a lot of sort of state-of-the-art artificial intelligence machine learning algorithms and models in order to be able to teach them how to do things. So we call the intersection of machine learning and robotics robot learning. I'll give you an example. If I was a robot here right now giving a pillow talk and I wanted to pick up my cup of water, I would probably need a camera, so I would need some kind of sensor to know where my cup of water is. Then I would need a computer to compute how far I think that is from me. Probably also do some object detection to make sure that is a cup, which is using a sort of, we call them a convolutional neural net. There's a lot of really well-known object recognition algorithms out there right now. So I would find that, and then I would compute how far that is, and then I would send each of my motors individually positions to go to, and I would pick it up. Right. So this is what makes me a robot, my ability to do those 3 things. And so most of the technologies I've used are robots, machine learning as it interfaces with robotics, and then quite a bit of sort of like gesture detection or gesture comprehension, which I think is very common across, especially what Grisha is also doing with motion capture. And then my day, a lot of it really looks like me sitting at a laptop. I spend a lot of my time programming. I spend a little bit of my time standing up and moving around. I spend a lot more of my time sitting at a computer. I'll give you one example. I did a show last summer at the Smithsonian with the Boston Dynamics Spot robots, which you've seen in all of the viral videos. It took us 3 days to program the 11-minute dance that they did, and Lisa, my other dancer, Willia, learned it in 2 hours. So we still have a very big difference between the time that it takes a robot to learn a dance and the time that it takes a human to learn a dance. And I think these types of contrasts between what the technologies are good at, robots right now are really good at repetition, exactitude, predictability. They're kind of okay at learning and adapting. But we as humans, we have texture, we're flexible, we're agile, we can change and grow and exist in relation to each other and in a social way. And I think my work is meant to highlight quite a few of those contrasts.
Thank you, Katie. Andrew, Grisha, curious your thoughts.
I just turned the lights on and off really fast. Pretty much.
But it is really fast, though, Andrew.
It is so fast.
I like what you said about, I think you called it something an actuation. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, sensing, computing, and actuation. I call it input, processing, and output. And so from my world, we have the inputs, which are all the sensors. We have the processing, which is the computers. And we have the output, which is like sound, lights, video, whatever it is. But as humans, we also have those things as well, right? Our ears, eyes, nose. Guts. We think about things, or we have muscle memory for things, and then we have output, which is our, talking, glaring hugging, whatever it is, dancing. And for me, and I think about technology and what technology do I use? I mean, I say I turn on the lights on and off really quickly because that's actually what I'm doing. I think that all technology, whether how complex it is, it's all based on the same sort of, ones and zeros, and it shouldn't be, I don't think it should be dealt with as like mythic or unattainable or like somehow a magical box. It's like these things are, if we pay attention to them, I think if we stop treating them as a distinct category, actually, if we just say like, actually, technology is in all our lives, and we should be fluent in that technology, and we should, like maybe these pieces have technology, maybe they don't. I would like to be much more fluid in how we speak about those things. But as far as how I speak about those things, what I use is a couple of things. This lighting array that you saw that use ultra wideband RF sensing in order to track people in the space and put lights where the people are and put the sound where the people are, and not put the lights or sound where the people are not, so that you can get an individualized track. You can leave a trail of lights behind you. You get an individualized story as someone comes up to a specific light. And then what I've been using over in the summer studio this week is something called wave field synthesis, which is a kind of just recently possible audio technology using many, many tiny speakers and a lot of different computational timings in order to provide a sound hologram. So traditional speakers, you can pan things left or right, but this sound hologram machine sort of like puts the sound out here, and all of us know that the sound is coming from right there, but there's no object there, which is pretty incredible. And but what would you ever use that for? But I think it's a great theater. I think theater is the answer. Dance is the answer. Live performance is the answer. And what the things that I make tend to really border on the edge of human perception and use scientific concepts, sort of like quantum entanglement or simultaneity, as a blueprint for staging. So what we've been doing in the summer studio with Lisa Fagan, who's right there, my collaborator, who's here this week, we've been sort of like, can I put my voice in your face? Can I put... Can we have a voice? Can I put my own voice in my own face and not know that? Have people not know if it's actually my voice or not? And hopefully, I fooled a couple of people. And it's not about fooling people, but it's about creating impossible realities. So we use these technologies to not just say, "Isn't this cool?" but to try to provide an experience that otherwise wouldn't be possible. I think. Yeah.
Andrew, you had me at sound holograms. Grisha, curious your thoughts here.
I'm not exactly sure what question we're answering, but I can just say some stuff.
I love your stuff.
Okay.
Let's do that. Yeah. It's the best stuff.
Okay. I think... What do you use? Okay, thanks. I use motion capture technology, I showed you. But I think it's the way that I use it that distinguishes it from other ways of using it. I mean, this technology is relatively new, but it's not a phone. So it's not, go around and take a video of the performance or of yourself or what have you. It does a certain thing. And we, as an artist, I guess I'd say, in this project, I'm not going for maximal. So if you've seen the making of, those actors have like tons of dots all over them to create Gollum. Or if you've seen the Benedict Cumberbatch being Sauron, it's awesome. Like you see those actors working, to be a dragon, to be a lizard. And so I have to look at that stuff. So I appreciate that it's very rigorous. But generally speaking, in my experience, performers maybe more, but dancers don't like the technology. I don't like the technology. Why? Because it limits you, and most of all, it reduces you. It reduces you severely, and one might say violently, because that is the nature of computation in a way. You know, it's to categorize and reduce. So knowing that that's the, let's call it the Enlightenment agenda for the way that that tech was born and the history of our technologies, you know, my question is, how can you distort it? How can you work with it differently? And so we use less sensors, not more, and we go more abstract, not more and more realistic, to ask questions about, to make it a, I don't know, like a critical watching. You know, so that's, to me, what differentiates it in body and mind from a Hollywood film, which is also awesome. I mean, which is totally awesome, but it's a different, you're asking different things of the technology, you're shining your flashlight in a different way, and you're trying to raise up, in this case, people and movement that is not valued. I mean, basically, that is not valued. You know, Lord knows I love Bill T. Jones, but you won't see him in this project. You know, because he, you know, as we say, Merce and Bill T., like the kings and queens of our world, they're the ones who get mocapped. But like they're at the pinnacle of their prowess. So this is different. You know, I must say, okay, how can we choreograph with it? In that way, it's like Andrew, like the small, and in that way, it's also like Katie, the labor. It's often around labor because that's what normal people do. That's what their movement, that's how they become virtuosic in their movement. I have a Sudanese farmer who, like, he hoes. And so I say, Isam hoeing, and that's the portrait. So I think that's, I'm interested, but also just to close that loop, I think that it's like dancers do that. Like dancers think about movement, they look at movement, they make movement, they extract movement, they re-put it together. So that's kind of what I'm doing, just not on bodies at the moment.
I love that. So I guess I'm going to ask one more question of our crew, and then I'm going to open it up to any questions, thoughts, comments that y'all might have. So the four of us started talking because we were a part of a larger project to imagine a brand new Doris Duke Theater here at Jacob's Pillow. This is worth some flipping applause, because this theater is getting built, y'all. 2025, it's going to be a big year. Get it? Pam Teji in the house. We, the four of us, were brought in to collaboratively help imagine how this theater might function for artists who are working at the outermost fringes of choreographic practice, not just today, not just for the next couple of years, but for decades and decades to come, which is a bonkers kind of precipice to be imagining on, right? So you can also maybe see how these three fantastic dance nerds play into that, I think. This last week has been a kind of prototyping of what a residency or rehearsal process might look like to engage these kinds of technologies in a brand new Doris Duke Theater. And so my final question for our crew here before we open it up, I'm curious how y'all imagine your creative practices in this new facility. What does this facility have to do with you? And what do you think it means for the larger live performing arts community?
Okay, I know. I'm not sure, but I think that I'm not sure, but I think that what is very cool about the way that you set it up is that, Katie, so that you ask the artists to come in at the ground. Say, well, so that it's not built in design and say, oh, are you interested in, putting your piece in there? That's novel. I mean, I've never been asked to be part of building a new building. And, so we get to, what did you say, Andrew? Think with tools? Yeah.
think out loud with the
think
tools.
out loud with the tools. And you know, we've had a lot of pretty esoteric conversations amongst us, and it's always time-space continuum and time-space entanglements and apertures, and you know, sometimes I'm like, but then, what is going
You throw
on?
down too. I mean,
I do, but I can confuse even myself. Listen, so what I'm saying is that, you know, space. We need space. We always have to work in space and time. That's the whole shtick. So when we think with potential spaces, it helps. And, you know, yeah, we can be more creative, more spontaneous. It's not like a pack and play. You know, just go into that theater, set it up. Oh, no, actually set it up in the lobby. Because what you're making is never going to work on that TST stage, you know, or if it does, we're going to have to do all sorts of flips around. So that's what I think. I think that it's an amazing testament to how you're thinking about what a future performance space might be.
thank you. Katie.
I've been fairly obsessed with history this week. I mean, 91 years of Jacob's Pillow. I think about what 91 years of dance has looked like. I mean, we as humans have been dancing a lot longer than we have been doing anything else. We've been dancing way before we were doing math, way before we were even sort of speaking in these like perfect complete sentences to each other, long before we were hammering nails into wood. Like the craft, the experience of dancing, there's actually, we have this capability as a species, it's called entrainment, where you can pair rhythm and movement. And that's fairly unique in nature. There are not a lot of species that know how to do that. And we know how to do that from the time we're 3 or 4 months old. And so this notion of dancing as a part of this rich, deep part of the human experience, I'm like, of course we would dance with robots. Like, that is the thing. That's how we make sense of the world, is we dance with the things that we have in our lives, in our environment, right? Like, this is how we have always made sense of the world. We dance at weddings. We dance to celebrate the rain coming down or not coming down. And it's like, so being here, thinking about these 91 years and then these thousands of years around what dance has meant, it's like ancestral. You know, it's a part of my dad's Cuban, and he's like, if you don't know how to dance, you're probably not Cuban. And so like, there's like something there that just goes beyond whatever words we use to self-describe the kind of work that we make. And when I think about the next 91 years and creating a theater for the decades that will support those 91 years, we are going to keep dancing. I think that's very well known. And we're going to dance in relationship to the tools and algorithms that we create as a society, because that's how we make sense of those things. And I was thinking about how cute it's going to be in 50 years when people look at the kind of robot that I was dancing with. They'll be like, that was so cute. Like, remember when TVs used to have the switches on them? Like, that was so cute. And it will just like become, you know, past. It will become an artifact. But in the time, you have to make the dance because it allows you to contemplate what kinds of futures are possible when I can make art with these objects. And what kinds of futures are preferential? What kinds of futures lift me up and make me feel empowered and want me to dance with these things versus what kinds of futures am I like oppressed by these tools that I'm surrounded by? And so that's a whole lot of responsibility for one building to handle. But I do think, and just like getting to connect with Francine a little bit this week, I've been so inspired to consider for my own practice, like this notion of space, working inside of a space, in a new space. I mean, of course, we're all going to need the things we talk about. Like, we need space, we need time. Grisha said beautifully earlier this week, like, this work takes a lot of time. Like, you need space, you need time, you need relationships, and like, we need this sort of collective belief that this sort of work, it demonstrates something that's, future facing, but like deeply ancestral about the way that we live and relate not only to each other, but also to our tools. Then like functionally, what else would I use the Doris Duke for? A theater is a technology. right? You're setting up a space, you have all of the elements inside of it. It is a piece of tech. So guess what? All these choreographers, they work in technology too. They do, because they're turning the lights on and they're pumping the smoke and they're closing the doors. And it's like that they're using the technology that's available at their disposal. Sydney gave us this beautiful introduction. And so I think this is a comment for me on what feels like an ancestral lineage of Jacob's Pillow, where it's headed, and that somehow is reflective of everything we've been thinking about this week.
That's right.
Correct.
Those were really good. Like, I'm not. I mean, I guess. Yeah, that's right. That's like. I don't even know what to add. It's just so good. That was just so good and well put. I think on the. Yeah, we use the tools that are available to us, and if they're not available to us, then we dream about them, but we don't use them. And in order to get fluent in them, we have to have them available to us, and that is an investment in infrastructure, because the people who are trying to think about this stuff, like, we got to cobble it together everywhere we go. We got to bring all our equipment with us, and we got to cobble it together and try to be future facing, and it's really exhausting. So it would be cool if that stuff was there from the beginning, and I think, like, there's, at the end of the day, also, there's a reason that we're all here. There's a reason that we're not home watching Netflix right now. And Netflix is really good, but we're still drawn to being together with each other and witnessing other people do something virtuosic or hard or heartfelt, and that this is a form of communication, and we have to make sure that the tools that we have in our, it's a technology, but it's also, it's a language, and we have to make sure that we get fluent in all of the languages, and have them be future facing as well, I think. Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew. Y'all, the future of dance is bright. I'm super excited for this dance future. We have about 10 minutes remaining in our time today to fill with your questions, thoughts, comments, things that you would like us to pontificate about. The floor, sir, is yours. I will, if you pose your question, I'll repeat it for the panel, and then we'll go from there, please. Sure. So the question is about the audience. Do you think about the audience in relation to your work? How does audienceship change maybe as these technologies are being developed? Yeah. What they like, what they don't like. Andrew Schneider, please.
I think we all think about our audiences a lot, because otherwise we wouldn't be making work, I think. Because I think that all three of us are just very invested in art. I think is human beings telling stories about ourselves to each other in order to get better at being human, and we want to be forward thinking, so we want to be pushing a little bit on the edge of, we're not sure if you're going to like it actually, and so when you come, I hope that we talk, and I hope that you tell me if you like it, and like, if you don't, exactly. I think that. Yeah, I think that we have our intent and you have your experience, and there's a Venn diagram that overlaps somewhere in the middle. And when we hit that sweet spot, I think it's amazing. And not everything is for everybody, but I think we have to be pushing forward. But always, I mean, I like to think that, like, I made this for you. I think that the best theater and performance I've ever seen is, I get the sense that, not that I'm watching someone do something hard, but like, that they say to me, in their performance, I made this for you.
I want to quickly add one thing, which is that I made an installation. The first thing I ever made with a robot was this big dance with a robot. And then I was like, you know what? I'm having the most incredible experience dancing with this thing that is so alien. Everybody needs to have this experience. So I actually turned it into an installation. And we had people come in and dance with a robot. And they would mirror the robot around. And then I did what I thought was some clever stuff and hooked up a whole bunch of things so that there was a big conceit at the end. But it gave me this sense of, like, I'm having this incredible experience, like, it belongs to you too. And so the audience became a participant in the work. And otherwise I would just dance with that robot alone in my house and never show it to anybody, right? So it's like the audience, I love how Andrew describes experience and intent. Like, you're always thinking about the audience. I might not be like, what is going to get me a 5-star review on Katie Yelp, you know? But like, I'm definitely thinking about like, how do I facilitate an experience that is evocative, that like has never been felt in this particular permutation before?
If you haven't already purchased katieyelp.com, you really need to, I think. Yeah, 2 thumbs up. Grisha, any thoughts you'd like to contribute? No. Thank you. Let's see, we have a number of hands. Yes, please, go ahead.
I thought your first question was, how does your technology enhance the dance? And I understand what you did perfectly, but I still don't understand the technologies that you're working with, how it will apply and enhancing the dance. And my concern is, as you talk about these things, is that as these future technologies are applied, we become razzle-dazzled by the technology instead of the dance, and we can go to Disney for that.
So that's sort of an excellent compound question. So we have, on one hand, a want for clarification in terms of what, again, the technologies are that you're using and how they are part of your practice, but also maybe a kind of anxiety about how these technologies like shape the future of performance, and maybe a concern that we be too dependent on those technologies, or that the technologies maybe take the place of the human actors. Yeah, so there's a kind of a labor replacement question here, absolutely. So maybe I'll start with Katie and Grisha, and then curious what y'all think here.
You know, I think that what do they say? The horse has already left the stable. I think we already, cows. Yeah, the cows, sorry. The goat is gone. I don't know what to think, thank you.
The animals are over
Woo,
there.
sis, yes. I mean, the razzle-dazzle, like the fear of like what happens if all the focus comes on the tech, I think that that's exactly what these artists here are trying to pull back the curtain on. I think that we are already addicted and obsessed with our own technologies. I ride the subway in New York, and everyone's like, I mean, everyone. And, you know, Andrew, not you, okay. Thanks.
Thank you for your
I
service.
mean, yes, exactly. I mean, I think, you know, that in itself is its own theatrical gesture, if you will, and we could make something out of that. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of inchoate, but I don't think we're going back to somewhere, like to some place where humans were fully, like, in fact, I don't think we were ever there. You know, I think humans dismiss other humans in significant ways, like through technology. And so I think that we better, I think we better wrangle with it. I think we better work with it. I think we better understand what is coming in. That's how I think about it. I don't think, wow, I wish I were in the Garden of Eden. I wish we could go back to a time. Yeah. I mean, I don't wish that. I don't wish that, because during those times also, all sorts of atrocities. So, I mean, I think that using the stuff, critiquing the technology as we use the technology is like very endemic to what we're trying to do here in a kind of way. Look at the human in it, you know.
I completely agree with everything that Grisha said. I think it is, deploying it in these ways is a form of critique in my work in particular. It isn't necessarily a senior prom parade for the awesome robot. It's how can this thing serve an artistic vision in order to enable a type of story I literally would not be able to tell without this thing. And I've had a lot of people talk to me, because I use a bunch of AI in my work, and then there's worthily so, like, I don't even know if that's a word, but like rightfully so, there is a panic about generative AI, particularly with my friends who are visual artists. And I could not make the work that I make without AI. And it is different work. It is not, Louis XIV's court doing ballet. And I call it choreo robotics because, and this is, I would posit a field, and people will get PhDs in this in the future, this confluence of dance and robotics, because it is neither one of them, right? It is both and. And so I think it's about the deployment and service of a critique, the creation of a new kind of art that isn't, nobody could play the guitar until they made the guitar, right? And so, like, I can't play this instrument until I've made it. And now I get to play it, and what kind of sounds can I make? What kinds of experiences can I facilitate? What kinds of questions can I ask now that I couldn't ask before? And believe me, like, I grew up in dance. Like, I loved dance, and I cry just like everybody else at all the big moments. And I can, like, there's no universe where I'm like, I want to replace that, or I want to replace the dancer. I'm like, how much richer and broader and deeper can a dancer be when they get to be in relation to some of these things? And this is, again, like what we're all exploring together, like per the question about audience, per the question about space, and the crux of the work and the kind of work that we make. It's unfolding for all of us in real time. That, for me, feels thrilling, a little scary, and has tremendous potential.
Just one last thing maybe to add to the concern about razzle dazzle also is I do think that novelty is real until it isn't. Yeah. Like there will always be the new thing. We'll always be like, oh my, that's incredible. I want to see that. And then in 2 months it won't be the thing anymore. So I think that there will always be work and artists who make with new tools, and it just won't be very good. But we need people making not very good stuff with new technology so that we can figure out what it's not good at. So that we can be like, oh yeah, I'm not interested in that at all. And I think that people understand what good storytelling is, and no matter what technology is being used, the good storytelling will rise to the top, and the razzle dazzle and the novelty, the stuff that's maybe a little more hollow, I think that will fall away, and I don't think that will change, no matter what the technology is. Yeah.
Yo, we are out of time. I know. So I'm going to encourage y'all to hang out for a moment after our discussion. I'm going to ask our esteemed panelists to share with our audience a little bit, like where people can find more information about your work, about your practices, and then we'll officially close out. Grisha, please.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Google me.
You know, YelpKatie.com or whatever.
Google Grisha Coleman at YelpKatie.com.
Yes, I mean, sorry, I totally skimmed on that, but I'll figure it out and I'll let you know.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you. I don't have a Yelp yet, but stay tuned. My website is a great way to keep in touch. It's just my name, KatieKwan.com. I also have an Instagram. Come check me out. If you're in New York on December 16th, would love to see you at my show at National Sawdust. It's going to be field trip. It's going to be wild. I won't have seen it until that. Well, I will have seen some things, but we'll all experience that thing together. And then I'm also a postdoc right now at Stanford. So anybody who comes out to the Bay Area would love to show you our brand new robotics center, which has a dance studio in it. In the front. Mirrors went in a month ago. It's real. With a sprung floor. Guaranteed.
Future's bright. Andrew, the floor is yours.
Hi, you can catch me at andrewjs.com for all your updates. If you're in Abu Dhabi next week, one of the stars show will be there. And then comes right on back to Iowa, University of Iowa. That old regular tour circuit.
It says something about careers in the arts right now.
And then we'll be developing the new sort of more dance work just in residencies across the U.S. Over the next couple of years. Yeah.
Thank you. Grisha, anything you'd like to throw down? No? We're done here. Y'all, please give a healthy round of applause for our guests. Thank you all so much. All right. 2025, y'all. Have a good afternoon. Thank you.